The story of Britney Spears, not just as a global pop icon, but through her own voice in her memoir, The Woman in Me. What's immediately striking is how it moves beyond typical celebrity narratives, offering this raw, unfiltered look at identity, at power dynamics, and, what it truly means to fight for your own narrative against immense public and private pressure.
Right.
You've shared this incredible source material, and our mission today is to dig out those core lessons and insights, giving you, our listener, a shortcut to truly understanding a journey that shaped pop culture and ultimately became a profound fight for self-reclamation.
What stands out here, I think, is how the source material isn't just a chronological recounting of events, but a powerful exploration of the psychological and emotional landscape of someone living under intense, relentless scrutiny, just constant.
Yeah, relentless is the word.
We're going to trace the patterns, understand the why behind pivotal moments, and connect the dots between her earliest experiences and her later struggles for freedom and authenticity. This narrative really compels us to ask, how does a life lived so utterly publicly and under such severe control fundamentally shape one's sense of self and agency? It's a huge question.
Exactly. And what strikes me is how, even from those early creative sparks, the seeds of her later struggles were already being sown. You can almost see it.
You really can.
We're going to follow that thread, tracing a path that led to both unparalleled success and, unimaginable challenges. Prepare yourself for some surprising facts and moments that truly resonate and hopefully offer some profound takeaways about resilience and the human spirit. Hashtag the formative years, creativity, family, and early bonds. Okay, so our journey begins in those formative years, and what immediately leaps off the page is the sheer force of Britney's early artistic urges. Imagine this, an 8-year-old girl taking herself incredibly seriously, playing director in her girlfriend's backyard, meticulously shooting music videos to Mariah Carey songs.
Wow.
At 8.
Right. She recounts feeling that nobody in my town seemed to be doing stuff like that, but she knew what she wanted to see, and she made it happen.
That drive.
For her, creating art wasn't just a hobby. It was an urgent escape into wonderful, fictitious worlds. Singing, she explains, bridged reality and fantasy, the world she was living in and the world she desperately yearned to inhabit. It's a vivid, almost poignant picture of a child already finding her voice, not just as a performer, but as a creator seeking solace, seeking a different reality.
That early drive is, without question, a crucial foundational element. Yeah. It's fascinating how that initial motivation for creativity, essentially, as a coping mechanism, right? A way to construct an alternate reality and process her inner world might later clash so profoundly with the commercial pressures and external control of the music industry.
Oh, absolutely. That clash feels inevitable looking back. The powerful insight here is that art as escape can insidiously become art as obligation. And when the very mechanism of escape becomes the cage, well, the psychological toll on the artist's spirit is not just damaging, but profoundly disorienting.
Yeah.
It creates a deep dissonance between her true self, driven by inner creative need, and her public persona, sculpted by external demands. You see that tension throughout the book.
And speaking of deeply damaging influences, it's impossible to understand Britney's narrative without delving into the shadow of generational family trauma. The memoir paints a stark and truly tragic picture of her paternal grandmother, Emma Jean Spears, after whom Britney received her middle name.
Jean.
Jean suffered horrific abuse at the hands of her husband, Gene Spears Sr., Britney's grandfather. Beyond the domestic violence, Jean endured the unimaginable loss of a baby who was only 3 days old.
Just heartbreaking.
Following this devastating loss, June sent her to a horrible asylum in Mandeville, where she was put on lithium. The story culminates in a devastating tragedy. In 1966, at just 31 years old, Jean shot herself with a shotgun on her infant son's grave.
Wow.
It's difficult to even conceive of the grief and despair she must have felt to reach such a point. And this wasn't an isolated incident with June. He sent his second wife to the same mental hospital, and one of her father's half-sisters accused June of sexual abuse starting when she was 11. Just awful.
This isn't just a sad family history. It's a stark illustration of generational trauma, how deeply ingrained patterns of abuse, coping mechanisms, and emotional scarcity can echo through families, unconsciously shaping the very next generation. You see it so clearly here.
Yeah.
Her father, Jamie Spears, was only 13 when his mother, Jean, died on that grave. As a child of such profound abuse and loss, Jamie likely absorbed patterns of control, emotional absence, and destructive coping mechanisms like heavy drinking.
Which she connects directly, right?
Absolutely. Britney directly connects her father's difficult upbringing to his later behavior, noting that for him, Nothing was ever good enough for his children. He pushed her brother Brian to excel in sports, drank until he couldn't think anymore, and would disappear for days at a time, becoming extremely mean when intoxicated. The insight here is how deeply these unaddressed wounds can manifest, perpetuating cycles of control and creating an environment of emotional unpredictability for his own children, including Britney. It's a complex picture, though.
Right, because she mentions the grandfather softening later.
Exactly. The source also mentions that grandfather June softened as he got older, and Britney experienced him late in his life as patient and sweet, a surprising detail that adds another layer to this troubled family tree. It's rarely simple.
That complexity extends to the contrasting parental worlds described in the memoir. Her father's background was troubled and working class, a welder at oil refineries, prone to heavy drinking. After Brian was born, his drinking started to take a significant toll.
A really significant toll.
To the point where her mother even filed for divorce in March 1980 after he went on a prolonged bender, missing Brian's first birthday and even going AWOL on Christmas morning.
Wow, Christmas morning.
Yet despite these patterns, he was begged to come back by his own father and new wife, and ultimately, Britney's mother took him back. In complete contrast, her mother, Lynn, came from what Britney describes as an elegant, sophisticated family from London and Malta with more money and a strong musicality.
So very different backgrounds colliding.
Totally. Lynn even attended Catholic school, dressed fashionably with highest boots and the tiniest skirts, and hung out with gay guys who gave her rides on their motorcycles. It paints a picture of two vastly different worlds colliding.
When we connect this to the bigger picture, this clash of backgrounds and the profound early instability, with the mother filing for divorce and then repeatedly taking the father back, likely contributed to a fundamentally chaotic and unpredictable family environment.
It had to.
For a young Britney, this environment would have significantly impacted her perception of safety, predictability, and stability, setting an early precedent for later struggles with control and trust throughout her life. It suggests a childhood where emotional ground was constantly shifting, which can deeply embed a need for control or, conversely, a profound disorientation when control is lost later on.
Digging deeper into her childhood, the source material reveals some incredibly significant and poignant relationships that provided glimmers of stability amidst the family chaos. Her great-grandmother, Lexi, seems to have been a true beacon of unconditional joy and comfort.
Lexi, yeah, that part was lovely.
Britney vividly remembers sleepovers, going through Lexi's makeup cabinet, indulging in huge breakfasts, and falling asleep to 1950s ballads. She loved drifting off to sleep by Lexi's side, inhaling the comforting scent of her face powder and perfume. This was a profound, grounding bond.
A real safe haven.
But it was a huge loss when, after a minor car accident where Lexi simply ran into another car and got stuck in a hole, her mother deemed Lexi senile and abruptly forbade Britney from being alone with her.
Just like that, after a minor accident.
Just like that. Britney recalls begging to see her, protesting, "It wasn't even a bad accident." The sudden separation must have been deeply confusing and painful for a child.
What's truly fascinating here, and kind of chilling, is the profound significance of this early, sudden separation from a beloved, safe figure. It taught her a crucial and unsettling lesson, a quiet internalization that being with someone I loved could be considered dangerous or could be taken away.
Wow, that connection is stark.
Right. This incident subtly but powerfully foreshadows later much larger themes of control and isolation in her life, where her access to loved ones would be dictated, restricted, or outright forbidden by others, mirroring that early traumatic loss of Lexi. It's a very early pattern of autonomy being stripped away.
And then there's her brother, Brian. The memoir details an intense closeness that formed out of her sincere, genuine recognition of his pain after his severe accident when he was very young.
The accident sounds horrific.
He was airlifted to the hospital and came back in a full-body cast, even having to pee through a hole. Britney, empathetically, wouldn't leave his side. She slept beside him every night for years, even after the cast came off, feeling the most endearing, protective love.
She felt she had to protect him.
Yeah, she explains that she wanted to bring him comfort because she knew he had a difficult life. Eventually, her mother insisted on separate rooms when Britney was almost in 6th grade, but that profound bond endured. It speaks to an incredible capacity for empathy at such a young age.
This profound empathy and protective instinct became a deeply defining characteristic for her. It highlights an early emotional maturity and a deep capacity for care, which would undoubtedly impact her later roles in relationships and family dynamics.
You can see that playing out later.
We see how, from a very young age, she was already shouldering emotional burdens, taking on a caretaker role for those she loved, sometimes to her own detriment, as she would later prioritize others' needs over her own. This tendency to protect and empathize would continue to shape her responses to hardship and control. #, the ascent to pop stardom, early triumphs and emerging challenges.
So we see this young Britney, quiet and small, almost preferring to disappear, yet coming alive with an undeniable power when she sang and danced. There's a fascinating duality to her childhood identity.
That hiding thing, yeah.
She loved hiding in cabinets, which became a family joke. Where's Britney now? She even reflected, I must have wanted them to look for me. For years, that was my thing to hide. But at the very same time, she possessed this uncontainable energy for dancing, singing in the church choir, and taking dance and gymnastics classes.
Two completely different sides.
Right. She originally told her teacher she wanted to be a lawyer for career day, but eventually, irresistibly, embraced being the little entertainer. It's this profound push and pull. I wanted to hide, but I also wanted to be seen. Both things could be true. She could feel small enough to disappear in a cabinet, but felt commanding a room on stage.
This hide and be seen duality is not just a quirky childhood habit. It's a core theme that runs throughout her entire life and career. It perfectly reflects a deep internal conflict between vulnerability and the intense need for attention and validation that comes with public life. On stage, under those bright lights, she genuinely felt invincible and in control. That was her space. But offstage, in her private moments, that sense of power often vanished, leading to a constant interplay between wanting to retreat from the spotlight and needing to be seen, to perform.
That makes so much sense.
This dynamic would play out repeatedly in her very public life, creating an ongoing tension between her authentic self and the persona she was expected to embody.
Her ascent to stardom was incredibly rapid, almost a whirlwind. We read about her competitive beginnings, winning a local dance competition at 5, wearing a top hat and twirling a cane, a clear foreshadowing of the performer she'd become.
Even at 5.
Her mother, Lynn, recognized this talent and began taking her to contests all over the region, where Britney recalls wearing the most ridiculous things in old photos, but clearly loving every minute of it. By 10, she was on Star Search.
Star Search, right.
Singing Judy Garland's I Don't Care, getting 3.75 stars, and later performing the Judds' Love Can Build a Bridge. She even played basketball with a rival contestant, Marty Thomas, illustrating a grounded, normal kid existing amidst the intense competition. She also performed in an off-Broadway musical called Ruthless, notably playing a sociopathic child star whose first song was ironically called Born to Entertain.
Oh, wow, that's fitting, in a dark way.
Kind of eerie, right?
This period clearly illustrates the astonishingly rapid escalation of her career, driven by both her undeniable innate talent and her mother's consistent, dedicated support. It quickly sets the stage for the intensity of the entertainment industry, almost serving as a rigorous boot camp for what was to come. The crucial insight here is that she knew even then at that young age that only while performing was I truly invincible. This isn't just a statement of confidence, it's a deep understanding that performance was her sanctuary, her zone of control.
Her safe place.
Exactly. A foundation that would later become twisted when that very performance became a source of captivity rather than liberation.
The Mickey Mouse Club was indeed a pivotal experience, and she describes it vividly as a rigorous boot camp. It was a constant cycle of extensive dance rehearsals, singing lessons, acting classes, time in the recording studio, and academic schooling. Intense.
All of it, yeah. The whole package.
The Mouseketeers, many of whom would become future stars, formed cliques, sharing dressing rooms with Christina Aguilera and Nikki DeLoach, and looking up to older kids like Kerry Russell and Ryan Gosling. And of course, it was here that she immediately connected with Justin Timberlake.
The beginning of that whole story.
She recalled him walking into their dressing room, making her heart fall out of my chest, and a truth or dare kiss at a sleepover, which reminded her of holding a guy's hand for the first time in 3rd grade, a wonderful rebellion. This immersive experience, she says, ignited her desire to sing and dance even further.
What's truly fascinating here is how this immersive environment, while undeniably igniting her passion for performance and honing her craft, simultaneously exposed her to the highly structured, intensely competitive pressures of the industry at an incredibly young age.
Yeah, trial by fire.
It shaped her understanding of performance as a demanding, disciplined pursuit, but also how relationships within that environment could begin to form and profoundly influence her future, both personally and professionally. It laid the groundwork for a life where performance and personal connections would be inextricably intertwined.
After the Mickey Mouse Club, she made a conscious decision to return to Kentwood, settling into what she describes as normal teenage life, or the closest thing to normal that was possible in my family.
Trying to find that balance.
But this normalcy was quite unique and perhaps in its own way rebellious. She recounts driving 2 hours to Biloxi, Mississippi with her mom to drink daiquiris they called toddies, and even sipping White Russians that tasted like ice cream.
With her mom. That's interesting.
Yeah, a different dynamic than with her dad's drinking. She started driving at 13 and recalls a scary car accident when her mother, sensing smoke from her cigarette, grabbed her hand off the wheel while Jamie Lynn was in the back without a car seat.
Whoa, that's terrifying.
Right. She also explored smoking cigarettes with boys in the locker room, and a crush on an older boy, 18 or 19, led to her missing 17 days of school and forging her mother's signature. Her brother, Brian, eventually told on her, resulting in the punishment of picking up trash around the neighborhood.
This period is a crucial illustration of her internal push-pull, the genuine desire for a typical life, for those moments of beautifully normal experiences like homecoming and prom. Yet the undeniable call of performance, coupled with the realities of her unconventional family life, kept pulling her back towards a more extraordinary path.
You can feel that tension.
The nuanced portrayal of her relationship with her mother, through those shared rebellious drinking habits, offers a glimpse into a complex bond. And her early precocious experiences with boys, including that car accident and the forged notes, clearly foreshadowed the intense public scrutiny of her sexuality and personal choices that would soon follow.
Yeah, setting the stage.
Setting a precedent for a life under constant moral judgment.
That desire to perform, that internal pull, eventually reignited. Her mother contacted a lawyer she'd met earlier, Larry Rudolph, who suggested she record a demo. The song was Today, a track Toni Braxton had recorded but wasn't used. She learned and recorded it in New Orleans.
And that led to Jive Records.
Exactly. This led to a surreal experience. Meeting Clive Calder, the formidable founder of Jive Records, she describes him as a little old man with insane energy and an incredibly intimidating 3-story office that felt like entering a parallel universe.
Sounds imposing.
The most precious thing in the office, a tiny teacup terrier of all things. It just adds this quirky, surreal layer to her early, slightly clueless dive into the industry. She admitted she was clueless, having no idea who he was or what Jive Records was.
She knew she wanted to sing.
But she knew she loved to sing and dance and was ready to show up for whichever of the gods could coordinate it for her. This blend of cluelessness and an eager willingness to please and work led her to months of recording underground in a booth where she only heard herself. The real transformation came when she met Max Martin.
Max Martin.
Crucial.
Who crucially actually listened to her desire for more R&B, less straight pop. And when asked if she wanted to dance, her answer was, hell yeah, I do.
This period really raises a fundamental question about agency and intuition. How much did she truly understand of the industry machinery at this point? She was driven primarily by passion and an earnest desire to please, rather than a full comprehension of the intricate commercial landscape.
Right, she just wanted to do it.
However, her enthusiasm and innate talent were undeniable, serving as her true compass. The transformative experience with Max Martin, who genuinely heard and responded to her creative input, was a vital step in shaping her unique musical direction and igniting that powerful enthusiasm for dance that would define her early career. It demonstrates the power of a collaborator who listens, even if the artist herself isn't fully aware of her own burgeoning power.
And that creative vision, that innate understanding of her audience became crucial very quickly. For the Baby One More Time video, the label came to her with a concept where she would be a futuristic astronaut looking like a Power Ranger. Oh God, no. That would not have worked.
Right. She instinctively rejected it, immediately knowing her audience wouldn't relate to something so alien. Instead, she conceptualized the iconic school setting where friends are bored until the bell rings and then boom, we'd start dancing.
And history was made.
Totally. The video was a smash, but immediate fame brought equally intense scrutiny. She recounted an MTV segment where she was forced to watch strangers in Times Square criticize her for being too sexy and setting a bad example.
That must have been brutal, especially so young.
She simply stated, with startling clarity for a teenager, "I never said I was a role model. All I wanted to do was sing and dance." Yet, despite her youth, she was treated as dangerous, her burgeoning sexuality a lightning rod for public judgment.
This moment, so early in her career, connects directly to the recurring and deeply damaging theme of public expectations versus personal reality. The media's relentless focus on her image and perceived virginity, despite her personal experiences and the fact she had been having sex since 14.
Which she didn't hide from them personally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It profoundly overshadowed her musical talent and hard work. It set a clear and dangerous precedent for years of backlash, where her sexuality was scrutinized and weaponized over her undeniable artistry.
Yeah.
It's a classic case of projection and control.
Yeah.
She also mentioned wishing she'd known Dolly Parton's brilliant joke at the time. "I'm not offended by all the dumb blonde jokes because I know I'm not dumb, and I also know that I'm not blonde," revealing her natural hair color is black.
That's great and a good point.
As coping mechanisms for this relentless external judgment, she began reading religious books and taking Prozac, early signs of the immense pressure she was under to maintain an impossible image.
Already turning to ways to cope, yeah. Despite that intense, often unfair scrutiny, she was undeniably expanding her empire. By the time Oops, I Did Again came out, she was a household name and feeling a burgeoning sense of control over her career.
Financially, at least.
Right. She was able to build her mom a house and settle her father's significant debts, wanting to give them a clean slate. These were acts of generosity, providing financial stability for her family. She performed a duet of The Way You Make Me Feel with Michael Jackson at his 30th anniversary celebration, a testament to her global superstardom.
Huge moments.
She worked on iconic Pepsi commercials like The Joy of Pepsi, and now and then even getting made up as Robert Palmer. Then came filming Crossroads, written by the legendary Shonda Rhimes.
Which she found challenging.
Incredibly challenging, not because of the production itself, but because she started method acting and quickly didn't know how to break out of her character. She felt she was becoming half herself and half a fictional character.
That's unsettling.
Yeah. She was ultimately relieved not to get the Notebook role, preferring to focus on her album In the Zone, perhaps instinctively recognizing the danger of losing herself too deeply in another persona.
This period clearly showcases her rising power and significant financial success, a testament to her global reach. Yet, it also subtly foreshadows deeper, more insidious issues regarding her sense of self.
Definitely.
The method acting experience in Crossroads, where she struggled to differentiate herself from her character, offers a disturbing glimpse into a potential loss of self, a blurred line between performance and reality. The insight here is profound. When your entire life becomes a performance and your identity is constantly being shaped by external demands, it becomes incredibly difficult to discern where the act ends and the true self begins. Her relief at not doing the Notebook suggests an intuitive, perhaps even desperate understanding that staying grounded in her music was preferable to further blurring the lines of her identity through acting. #love, motherhood, and the seeds of disillusionment.
Okay, let's fast forward to a pivotal and really painful chapter, the aftermath of her relationship with Justin Timberlake. She describes their connection as utterly magnetic, saying she was head over heels in love with him. So in love with him, it was pathetic.
You feel that intensity in her writing.
But then came the devastating blow. The painful discovery of his cheating with one of the girls from All Saints, revealed in the tabloids after a car encounter in London. Even more devastating was the public impact of his revenge song, Cry Me a River.
Oh, that song. The video. It was everywhere.
She recounts being booed at clubs and even at a Lakers game, a public shaming that cut deep. Her managers, ironically, had desperately tried to portray her as an eternal virgin, despite her having had sex since she was 14 and living openly with Justin. She didn't mind him outing her sexually, even appreciating it, saying, "Why did my managers work so hard to claim I was some kind of young girl virgin even into my 20s? Whose business was it if I'd had sex or not?"
Good point. And Oprah agreed.
Exactly. She cited Oprah's supportive statement that her sexuality was no one else's business. Ultimately, she felt like Justin had deliberately framed her as the bad guy, leaving her with a lingering sense of being under a curse after the breakup.
This period really raises a crucial question that reverberates through her entire narrative. How did the public shaming by a powerful male figure in the industry contribute to her feeling like the bad guy and that lingering sense of being under a curse?
It's impossible to ignore that dynamic.
It starkly highlights the entrenched double standards placed on male versus female artists regarding sexuality, where a man's infidelity is often dismissed or even deemed cute, while a woman is relentlessly shamed and scrutinized.
It still happens today.
Absolutely. Oprah's supportive statement underscores the vital importance of a voice of reason in the midst of media sensationalism. But the damage to Britney's public image and, more significantly, her personal psyche was profound and long-lasting. She bore the brunt of a deeply unequal power dynamic.
Reeling from the abortion and the breakup, as she describes it with such raw honesty, she desperately sought escape, going to Arizona with a girlfriend who had also just broken up with Jester's best friend.
Trying to heal together.
It was in the desert that she had a profound, almost mystical spiritual experience. She felt God, recalling the poet Rumi's words. "The wound is the place where the light enters you." She felt spiritually open and so raw, sensing more than just what we could see.
Wow. A real moment of clarity.
This powerful shared moment led to a critical realization, a turning point that would echo years later. You have to speak the thing that you're feeling, even if it scares you. You have to tell your story. You have to raise your voice. It was an awakening to the power of her own truth.
This shared spiritual moment, occurring at a time of deep personal vulnerability and profound loss, marks a truly critical turning point towards self-advocacy. It was an awakening to the inherent importance of her own voice,
Finding that strength.
and a realization that even in moments of darkness and profound woundedness, light can be found, and that she, uniquely, had to be the one to speak her truth. This insight, born from pain, would prove absolutely vital much later in her life, becoming the bedrock of her fight for freedom. It's a powerful testament to finding strength in your lowest moments.
Following that period of intense pain and profound realization, there were glimmers of personal freedom, small acts of rebellion, and self-reclamation. She recounted an invigorating trip to Milan to visit Donatella Versace.
Donatella, a different world.
Which served as a vibrant reminder that fun to be had in the world. She describes drinking wine, eating amazing food, and attending a glamorous runway show, moments of pure, unadulterated joy that momentarily freed her from the weight of her public persona. She also briefly dated Colin Farrell, even famously wearing what she later realized was a pajama top to his movie premiere, a charmingly unself-conscious act.
Love that detail.
Another notable moment was her first time smoking pot in a sexy underground club in New York, which led to hours of simply staring at the stars, feeling one with New York. These were small but crucial acts of rebellion and attempts to reclaim personal freedom and identity after intense emotional turmoil, testing the boundaries of her own desires.
These moments, seemingly minor in the grand scheme of her career, can be seen as crucial, almost foundational attempts to reclaim personal freedom and identity after intense emotional turmoil. They represent a fundamental seeking of experiences for herself, outside the rigid confines of her professional life or her prescribed public image.
Finding herself again.
It highlights her innate desire for authenticity, for human connection, and for joy that was unburdened by external expectations. These were important steps in rediscovering who Britney was when she wasn't performing or being defined by a relationship.
And then there was the profound influence of Madonna. Britney described her as someone who owned the room and exuded power and confidence.
A real mentor figure, it sounds like.
Definitely. Madonna told her she should take time out for my soul and modeled a type of strength that I needed to see in a world that consistently tried to diminish her. Britney noted her own previous tendency to please everyone, her parents, audiences, everyone, and openly expressed a wish for a mentor to be a badass bitch.
I think a lot of people could relate to that feeling.
She observed how Madonna had endured so much sexism and, critically, became her own parent, her own partner, her own advocate.
This connection with Madonna goes beyond just celebrity friendship. It highlights a crucial lesson in female empowerment and the varied, often difficult ways women navigate the entertainment industry. Madonna, as a figure who consistently defied expectations and maintained absolute control over her image and career,
A powerhouse.
planted crucial seeds of self-advocacy in Britney. She provided a living example that it was possible to be strong, assertive, and entirely oneself in a world that often sought to control and define her. This mentoring, even if informal, was a vital spark of empowerment for Britney's future fight.
In the midst of all this, her album In the Zone was a huge success, featuring Me Against the Music with Madonna and Toxic winning a Grammy. Huge hit.
A massive success.
But then, a sudden, almost impulsive turn. A Vegas party led to her surprise, annulled marriage to childhood friend Jason Allen Alexander. Her family was strongly against it.
Very strong.
And she realized something profound about their reaction. Something about my being under their control and not having a stronger connection to someone else had become very, very important to them.
Chilling insight right there.
It really is. It's a chilling insight into her family's vested interest in her dependence. It's also critically important to note that by this point, she was effectively supporting them financially, the money aspect is huge.
This raises an incredibly important question for us to consider. Was this surprise marriage, impulsive as it seemed, a subconscious act of rebellion against her family's increasing financial and personal control?
It feels like it could be.
It can certainly be seen as a desperate, albeit ill-fated attempt to assert independence and forge a connection on her own terms, directly challenging the family dynamics that had become so entrenched and financially dependent on her. It speaks to a deep, unfulfilled longing for autonomy.
Shortly after, she met Kevin Federline. She described an immediate, almost primal connection, a feeling of being steady, strong, a comfort.
Seeking that stability.
She recalled him holding her in a pool for hours, a moment she explicitly described as beyond a sexual thing, simply a longing for safety and emotional support after the profound pain of the Justin breakup. She stated that a lot of women can be as strong as they want to be, but at the end of the day, we want someone to hold us tight, revealing a deep human need for security.
That's a really vulnerable, honest admission.
Crucially, she admits a naive obliviousness to his existing children and heavily pregnant ex-girlfriend, saying she was clueless and living in a kind of protected bubble, perhaps too desperate for comfort to see the full picture.
This illustrates a very fundamental human impulse. The powerful drive to seek comfort and stability amidst chaos, even if it means overlooking significant red flags or inconvenient truths.
Happens all the time.
Her powerful description of wanting to be held speaks to a deep-seated human need, especially for women who often play powerful public roles but long for unconditional support and a sense of security that was clearly missing from her life. It highlights her vulnerability despite her immense fame and her desire for simple human connection overriding practical concerns.
The journey into motherhood quickly intensified, bringing both immense joy and overwhelming pressure. She loved sex and food during her pregnancies, describing herself as mean and hateful at times, a fierce, real mama bear who didn't want anyone near her, not even her own mother.
That protective instinct kicking in hard.
She recounts a profound fear of natural childbirth, finding immense relief in the planned C-section for Sean Preston, born in September 2005. This decision speaks volumes about her desire for control in a life where so much was uncontrollable, a feeling of agency over her body, even in that sacred moment.
Interesting way to frame the C-section choice. Control.
And then, shockingly quickly, just 3 months later, she was pregnant again with Jaden James, launching her into back-to-back pregnancies. Imagine the sheer physical and emotional toll this must have taken, a relentless marathon of transformation in plain sight.
What's truly fascinating here is how the intense physical and emotional toll of back-to-back pregnancies, coupled with what she now knows was severe postpartum depression, profoundly intensified her vulnerability.
Yeah, the PPD acknowledgement is key.
She described a Benjamin Button thing where part of her became the baby, a psychological impact common for parents, especially those with childhood trauma, as they relive emotional experiences through their children's stages of development. It highlights a deep identification with her children's innocence and dependence, but also how her own childhood wounds were being reactivated.
And through all of this, a constant menacing presence, the paparazzi. She describes them as an army of zombies, scaling walls and making public appearances feel like military operations.
It sounds like a literal siege.
This constant hounding was deeply painful, especially for someone raised in the South where manners and politeness are paramount. She felt treated with such disregard, such disgust, despite her efforts to be polite, still calling men sir and women ma'am as she had been taught.
That loss of basic human respect must have stung.
This relentless invasion, she explains, stripped away every part of normal life. Privacy, the ability to make normal mistakes as a new mother, and the fundamental capacity to trust others around her.
This constant external pressure from the paparazzi profoundly exacerbated her internal struggles and her postpartum vulnerability. It systematically stripped away every part of normal life, privacy, the ability to simply make normal mistakes as a new mother, and the fundamental capacity to trust others.
A whole erosion.
This relentless scrutiny led to a crippling feeling of no freedom and yet also no security, further isolating her during a time of immense personal and emotional transformation. It's a powerful illustration of how external forces can dismantle an individual's sense of safety and self. Hashtag the conservatorship, a life control.
This brings us to a chilling, utterly pivotal turning point in January 2008. Britney recounts a terrifying incident where, in desperate fear of losing her son Jaden, she ran into the bathroom and locked the door, clutching him, unable to let him go.
That bathroom incident, it's become so iconic, but her perspective changes everything.
Right. She describes a SWAT team in black suits bursting through the door as if she'd hurt someone, and she was then tied onto a gurney and taken to the hospital. She expressed her profound disbelief, stating, "The only thing I was guilty of was feeling desperate to keep my own children for a few more hours. It was an act born purely of maternal panic."
This event, often sensationalized and portrayed as a public breakdown, should instead be analyzed not as a breakdown, but as a panic born of desperation to keep my own children, when she felt her agency as a mother was completely eroding.
A mother's desperation.
This compels us to ask a difficult question. Was this a moment where a mother, stripped of all agency and pushed to the brink by a system that was systematically failing her, was driven to an extreme act out of sheer love and fear? The immediate chilling consequence was that, despite her desperation, she was allowed to see her children even less.
Just gut-wrenching. The immediate aftermath of that incident was a true shock for Britney. She discovered her father, Jamie Spears, had struck up a very close friendship with Louise Lou Taylor of TriStar Sports and Entertainment Group.
Lou Taylor, a name that comes up a lot.
A figure who, according to Britney, was directly involved in calling the shots right before the conservatorship was put in place. Britney expressed her utter disbelief and shock that her father, an alcoholic, someone who declared bankruptcy, who'd failed in business, who terrified me as a little girl, would now be given complete control over her entire life and career.
The very person she feared.
She felt he saw her as put on earth for no other reason than to help their cash flow, a chilling reduction of her worth, just seeing her as a money machine.
This can unequivocally be framed as a strategic power grab, cunningly disguised as a necessary stepping stone to her comeback. It highlights a stark, almost absurd double standard.
It's glaring, isn't it?
She was deemed too sick to choose my own boyfriend, too mentally unstable to manage her own affairs, and yet somehow healthy enough to appear on sitcoms and morning shows, and to perform for thousands of people in a different part of the world every week.
Make it make sense.
This glaring contradiction exposed the true manipulative nature of the arrangement, revealing it as a mechanism for control and exploitation rather than protection.
Life under the conservatorship's iron fist was characterized by extreme, humiliating control that permeated every aspect of her existence. Her father, Jamie, immediately took over her personal study and bar area, turning it into his office, a symbolic takeover of her private space.
Marking his territory.
He completely ignored her bowl of receipts, her old-school, organized way of managing her finances, which to her was proof that I was still capable of managing my affairs. Just dismissed.
Infantilizing her completely.
Even her dating life was humiliatingly restricted. Security ran background checks, required NDAs, blood tests, and even shared her full medical and sexual history before the first date.
Before a first date? That's unbelievable.
She was even explicitly forbidden from seeing a photographer she had been dating. The dehumanization was complete.
This is where we see the truly dehumanizing nature of these controls, systematically stripping her of basic human dignity, autonomy, and the fundamental ability to form normal, private relationships. It's an egregious invasion.
Yeah.
This compels us to ask a profound question. How can a person possibly maintain a sense of self, a core identity, when literally every aspect of their life, even the most intimate and personal, is dictated by others? It's a profound erosion of identity designed to keep her dependent and malleable.
The psychological impact of this pervasive control was immense and ultimately led to a profound retreat of her spirit. Her cell phone was immediately taken away, leading to desperate attempts to use smuggled burner phones, but they always caught me.
That constant surveillance.
She reached a point where she felt no fight left in me. She was tired and scared, even openly wondering if they did want to kill me.
Just imagine feeling that way about your own family.
So she made a conscious, albeit painful decision. She decided to play along and go on autopilot, clinging to the desperate belief that if she played good, surely they'll see how good I am and they will let me go. Her vibrant spirit simply retreated deep within herself as a mechanism of survival.
This reveals a profound coping mechanism, a retreat of the spirit, a form of self-preservation in the face of overwhelming and seemingly inescapable power. It's a magnified, enforced version of her childhood impulse to hide in cabinets.
Wow, yeah, full circle in a terrible way.
But this time, the hiding was not a choice, but an absolute necessity for emotional survival. It was a quiet act of resignation when direct resistance seemed futile, forcing her into a state of autopilot where she became a compliant, unfeeling machine. The death of hope was nearly absolute.
This absolute control extended devastatingly to her creative output, profoundly shifting the very nature of her music. Her album Blackout, released just before the conservatorship, was described by her as a battle cry, the easiest and most satisfying to make, functioning as a survival mechanism against the paparazzi.
Blackout is seen as such a crucial, defiant album by fans.
Exactly. It was critically acclaimed and even influenced other artists. In stark contrast, later work like Work Bitch was something she was not proud of, felt tacky, and left her demoralized.
You can hear the difference, honestly, the lack of spark.
She described being forced into darkest and ugliest studios, feeling cornered, and her genuine passion for singing and dancing becoming almost a joke to her.
This stark contrast highlights in the most visceral way how a complete lack of creative control and profound emotional repression can utterly stifle artistic output, even for a global icon whose entire being was tied to performance.
It killed the joy.
The joy of performance, which was her original escape and source of power, was systematically transformed into a mechanical obligation, a robot-like existence that represented nothing less than death to my creativity. Her art became a painful symptom of her captivity, rather than a testament to her freedom and self-expression. It's a tragic testament to the erosion of an artist's soul.
The physical control was relentless, particularly during her multi-year Vegas residency. Her father, Jamie, was a constant, imposing presence, constantly watching her, forcing her to sign waivers. She wasn't even allowed to drive a car, despite being perfectly capable.
Couldn't even drive her own car.
Nope. She was repeatedly told she was fat, despite her rigorous dieting and constant exercise. For 2 agonizing years, she ate almost nothing but chicken and canned vegetables, recalls literally begging a butler for real food, only to be told he had strict orders from your father.
Controlling her food like that, it's just cruel.
It was a total deprivation of basic human comfort and autonomy.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this highlights the pervasive, totalizing nature of the conservatorship's control, impacting her body image, her physical well-being, and her most fundamental sense of personal agency.
It's micromanagement on a terrifying scale.
This isn't just about a celebrity being put on a diet. It's about the insidious ways power can manifest and erode an individual's autonomy, dictating even the most basic aspects of daily life, like what and when one can eat. It's a microcosm of the total control exerted over her.
The Vegas residency schedule itself was brutal, designed to extract maximum output from her with minimal regard for her well-being. 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off, doing 3 2-hour shows a week.
Relentless grind.
On top of that, whether she was on or off, she had a mandatory weekly schedule of 4 AA meetings, 2 hours of therapy, and 3 hours of training, plus meet and greets that often felt forced. Her simple request to watch a movie with her sons was denied.
Denied watching a movie with her kids.
Denied. Leading her to feel like she was in a cult and my father was the cult leader. She felt profoundly burned out and completely out of control of her destiny.
This grueling schedule and the refusal of even simple human requests, like watching a movie with her sons, vividly illustrates the sheer exhaustion and the state of sleepwalking she describes due to trauma. Her subtle rebellion by toning down my energy on stage, a form of factory slowdown.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Was her quiet act of defiance against her captors, a desperate way to reclaim a sliver of agency in an otherwise completely controlled environment. It was a silent protest, almost imperceptible to the audience, but deeply significant for her.
And beyond the physical and emotional exhaustion, there was a profound creative stagnation that felt deliberate. She constantly begged for remixes or new numbers, anything to break up the monotony of the same show, but was always denied.
Keeping her static.
They claimed it was too hard, or due to time codes, when she, knowing the business inside out, knew it was totally possible. Her devastating realization was that her father's priorities meant that she might not need her dad as her conservator if she had too much creative control.
There it is. The control motive.
She felt it might have scared them for me to actually be the star she truly was capable of being.
This point is critical, as it shows how the control extended to the very core of her artistic expression, deliberately keeping her less than or creatively stifled to maintain power. It wasn't about her capability. It was a calculated move to ensure her continued dependence and to prevent her from truly roaring back to life and potentially challenging the conservatorship.
Exactly.
They feared her artistic autonomy because it directly threatened their financial and personal control over her. It's a chilling reminder of how control can be used to clip the wings of even the most powerful performers. Hashtag the fight for freedom and rebirth.
The breaking point was coming, slowly but inevitably. She describes a growing realization within herself, a new resolve forming. If you guys are trying to trick me into feeling bad for saying no, I'm not going to fall for it again. That internal shift was profound.
Finding that strength again, that voice.
The forced extension of the Vegas residency into a tour, which she describes simply as hell, made her feel more locked down than ever, sometimes with only 2 hours' notice to leave her room before being moved. Threats of court loomed over her like a dark cloud, constant reminders of her subjugated state.
This escalating pressure, this feeling of being backed into a corner with no escape, directly fueled her increasing resolve. The song Overprotected, which she had sung with such innocent irony many years earlier.
Right.
Irony now took on a new, dark, and utterly literal meaning as she finally understood the true depth and pervasiveness of her confinement. This period of forced tours was a critical catalyst for her determination to fight for her freedom, transforming a passive acceptance into an active resistance.
Then came a truly terrifying and pivotal experience. After refusing the tour, she was abruptly sent to a facility, essentially a rehab, under false pretenses.
The facility incident is just horrifying to read about.
She was falsely accused of being way worse and having problems with over-the-counter energy supplements she'd been taking. She describes being locked up against my will for months, enduring weekly blood tests, no privacy whatsoever, mandatory therapy sessions, and, most chillingly, being abruptly taken off Prozac and immediately put on lithium.
Lithium? The same drug her grandmother was on.
Exactly. The connection was not lost on her. She described lithium as a dangerous drug that made her feel utterly disoriented, feeling like her brain wasn't working. She felt like a bird without wings, utterly helpless, but this experience also forged a new resolve within her.
This experience in the facility was a profound, soul-crushing trauma. Being locked up against my will for months and subjected to dangerous experimental medication regimes deepened her resolve to an unimaginable degree.
Forged in fire, kinda.
She says, seriously, I'm not scared of anything now. A powerful testament to how trauma, once survived, can strip away all fear. The hypocrisy of her father, Jamie, presenting himself to the public as a devoted grandfather while sending her to a place with crack and heroin addicts and subjecting her to such conditions.
The disconnect is staggering.
Only further underscored the manipulative and exploitative nature of his control. This was rock bottom, but it was also the crucible of her newfound strength.
But then, amidst that darkness, a beacon of hope, an unexpected lifeline appeared. She describes a truly pivotal moment when one of the nurses, whom she calls the only one who was real as hell, showed her clips on a computer of women on a talk show wearing hashtag Free Britney t-shirts.
The hashtag Free Britney movement reaching her inside.
Wow. She saw fans sensing she was in danger and actively trying to help her. She also saw clips of fans marching in the streets outside the courthouse, chanting, "Free Britney." She said it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in my life, a moment of profound recognition and connection.
This moment of seeing her fans advocating for her from afar created a powerful, almost mystical connection. She felt a subconscious understanding of her confinement, a bond that transcended physical distance and the walls of her captivity.
That connection must have been life-saving.
This raises an incredibly important question about the power of collective empathy. What does this say about a fan base's ability to discern truth and rally support, even when information is suppressed and distorted by powerful forces? It was a real-world manifestation of the transformative power of a collective voice.
Yeah.
Proving that what do we have except our connections to one another, and what stronger bond is there than music? This movement breathed new life into her, proving she wasn't alone.
This surge of external support, combined with profound internal shifts, truly began her journey of reclaiming her voice and identity. She found newfound solace and inspiration in humor, watching comedians like Amy Schumer, Kevin Hart, Sebastian Maniscalco, and Joe Coy.
Laughter as medicine.
Their wit and cleverness reminded her that she too could use her voice, could find levity even in the darkest situations. Her kids, Sean Preston with his genius and Jaden with his incredible gift with the piano, also profoundly helped change her perspective and foster creativity, enabling her not to get consumed by bitterness, offering an unconditional love that allowed her to heal.
This period illustrates how laughter and the unconditional perspective of her children became crucial healing tools, enabling her to process profound trauma and begin to move forward. It highlights the importance of finding new outlets for expression and connection that were unburdened by the past,
Moving beyond the trauma.
allowing her to rebuild a sense of self not defined by her captivity. These seemingly simple joys became profound acts of self-care and re-engagement with life.
The profound turning point, the ultimate act of defiance, came on June 22, 2021, when, from her home in California, she made the courageous decision to call 911 to report her father for conservatorship abuse.
That 911 call, a huge step.
This was during a limbo period where she still couldn't speak out publicly, even when her sister's book was released, which she felt painted an inaccurate picture. She felt her voice was everywhere through her music and image, but had been so suppressed in her actual life that she feared no one would recognize it if she spoke freely, if she spoke her truth.
This 911 call was an ultimate act of defiance, a moment of profound courage after years of suppression and forced silence. It was the point where she truly began to reclaim her narrative and agency, stepping out of the shadows despite the intense fear and the uncertainty of the outcome.
Yeah.
It was the crucial first note in her song of freedom, a public declaration that she would no longer be silenced.
The moment of giving her public statement to the judge was fraught with intense fear. She worried, what if they called me crazy? What if they said I was lying? The stakes were impossibly high.
Understandably terrifying.
But she held on to her deep desire for people to understand, her faith, her right to experience joy, and her unwavering knowledge that I deserved my freedom. She clung to the deep, resonant sense that the woman in me was still strong enough to fight. She looked at Hissam, who squeezed her hand, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she began to tell her story, declaring to the judge with searing honesty, "I've lied and told the whole world I'm okay and I'm not." It was a moment of true, unvarnished truth.
This was the moment of true vocal reclamation. It wasn't about performance or pleasing. It was about speaking her truth, plainly and powerfully, after years of silence and manipulation.
Just raw honesty.
The simple, raw act of saying exactly what she wanted to say, in her own words, after years of being silenced, was her rebirth. It was a declaration of self, a reclaiming of agency, and a profound act of self-love after years of self-effacement. This was the woman in her roaring to life.
Since regaining her freedom, she's illustrating it with tangible, joyous examples that many of us take for granted. She revels in driving her car exactly the speed I wanted to, eating what she wants, and freely drinking alcohol or coffee.
The simple things becoming profound.
This feels like roaring back to life, and she even playfully describes it as sinning in Sin City. She embraces taking naked photos and posing for herself, describing it as an unapologetic act of reclaiming her body and image, seeing herself lighter and freer, feeling reborn like a blank slate. It's an assertion of her own narrative over her body.
These seemingly simple acts highlight the profound, almost overwhelming joy of basic autonomy after 13 years of deprivation. Her decision to reclaim her body and image through self-portraits underscores a powerful act of self-love and self-definition.
Taking back control of her image.
Moving away from being viewed through others' objectifying lenses and towards seeing herself with new freedom. It's a reassertion of ownership over her physical self and her personal narrative.
Her approach to music has also been profoundly transformed. She now sings freely at home, stating, "Whether I sound perfect or not, I don't even care. Singing makes me feel confident and strong." It's a connection to God.
Finding that pure joy in it again.
She struggled with the question of performing again, but now if she does, it will be for me and for my genuine love of it, not for family's benefit or external obligation. She's clearly finding that sacred joy in music again, the same joy she experienced as a little girl before the machine took over.
This highlights the profound shift from externally driven performance singing and dancing for the benefit of others, or to fulfill contractual obligations, to internally motivated self-expression. Her art is no longer a tool of control, but a source of personal confidence, strength, and spiritual connection.
Yeah.
It's the full circle of her creative journey, returning to its authentic roots.
And what does freedom truly mean to her now after all she's endured? She lays it out so clearly and beautifully. It means being goofy, silly, and having fun on social media. It means taking a break from Instagram without people calling 911.
The right to just be normal online.
It means making mistakes and learning from them without fear of catastrophic consequences. It means I don't have to perform for anyone on stage or off stage. It means being as beautifully imperfect as everyone else, embracing her humanity.
Accepting imperfection, that's huge.
And most powerfully, she says, it means the ability and the right to search for joy in my own way, on my own terms. She has constructed a whole different identity, moving from being passive and pleasing to being strong and confident, truly evolving from a girl to a woman.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, her journey offers a profoundly powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit in constructing a new identity, even after enduring unimaginable suppression. It's a narrative of self-reclamation,
Absolutely.
defining how an individual can move from being passive and pleasing to embodying a strong and confident self, truly evolving from a girl to a woman by defiantly defining freedom on her own terms. It's a universal story of finding your roar.
Here's where it gets really interesting and incredibly impactful. Britney Spears' story, as we've unpacked it today, isn't just a tale of fame, legal battles, or even personal trauma. It's a deep dive into the universal human experience of finding your voice after it's been systematically suppressed, understanding the profound generational impact of past wounds, and ultimately fiercely defining freedom on your own terms. It's a powerful, resonant testament to resilience and the unwavering spirit of the woman in me.
This narrative compels us to ask a deeply personal question of you, our listener. In what areas of your own life do you feel held back, either by external forces, perhaps even invisible ones, or by internal pressures you've absorbed over time?
That's a powerful question.
And what might it look like for you to begin to define your own terms of freedom and allow that deeper, authentic self, that woman in you or man in you, to finally roar?
A truly thought-provoking way to end this deep dive. Thank you for joining us on this incredibly insightful journey through Britney's story. Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, and keep searching for those nuggets of truth that resonate with your own experience.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to ReadersPair, where two readers bring you one book and endless insights. See you in the next chapter.